during the month of June. I only read 6 books this month, totaling about 2,207 pages. This is the stack of books that I read. I did read some ebooks, so I have my Kobo here. Starting off, I read Emperor of Thorns. It's the 3rd book in the Broken Empire series, which these are all the books here. It's by Mark Lawrence, and this book, all 3 of them, I did not like. I should have DNF'd them, but because someone bought these for me as a gift, I felt that, like, I had to read them. But like the first 2 books were just horrible. I got them as an audiobook so I could get through them, and like I could listen to it while I'm cleaning, doing laundry, and cooking, or just doing anything around the house. Because I did not have the attention span to sit and read this book. I will say though, after I finished the first 2 books, I watched a video about it to see like what other people were thinking about the series, and I'm glad I did, and I wish I did it when I originally didn't like the story. The genre of this book is grimdark. I think that's what it's called, and it's the first I've ever read of it, and I didn't know that before I started reading it. So this book is just full of bloody, gory details and some of the most horrible, disgusting characters you could ever imagine. But like I said, by the 3rd book, I started to enjoy it more just because I realized this book was written to make you hate it, and I kind of liked that. All 3 of the books are just written that way. So the books follow this character named Jorg Angrath, and there's a lot of trauma that this boy goes through. I won't say anything because I don't want to spoil it, but I feel bad for him, but at the same time he does so many nasty things that it's like he almost deserves them. So I don't know how to explain it. It's a dark book. And I won't be reading any more like this, I will say. It's a one and done kind of deal. Okay, so the next book I read was on my Kobo, which I have in a case right now. I usually only have it in a case when I travel, but I do have the Kobo Libra Color, which I love. And I have a custom screensaver that I made myself on Canva, and I love it so much. But this is what it looks like. I like that the butterflies with the Kobo Libra Color are green, because to me it represents like the Northern Lights, which I really like the Northern Lights, so I feel like the butterflies are a cute touch. Anyways, the book that I read on here, it's part of a duology that I got with the Kobo Plus subscription, and I believe it's a whole series, but I only have book 1 and 2. Each book to me seems like a standalone where it follows each couple in the book. And I read the first one, which is called A Rancher's Heart, and it follows the 2 characters, Caleb Stone and Tamara Coleman. And I think I picked it up because I was in the mood for a Western romance, and this book was cute. I like that the dad was older, like 35, and he had 2 girls, and the girls are a handful, but he's divorced, and his ex-wife was apparently not a very nice lady. We never got to see her in the book, and I hope if I do continue the series that we get to see more of her and not just based off of what we get from the other characters. And Tamara Coleman, the first, the book started off really weird. Like, it was almost winter, and Caleb, for some reason, was mad, and he went to a cliff and jumped off into the water, and he was shirtless. And, like, I know it's a romance book, but that can't be, like, how you start the book. And then, like, Tamara shows up, and because she's an ex-nurse, like, she jumps in to try to save him, and, like, it was just so confusing, and I'm like, is this really necessary? And there was just a whole confusion. Like, she has glasses, and they got stepped on, and just caused a lot of conflict that didn't need to be there. But from there, the book, I think, was really enjoyable. I read it pretty quickly. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the book too much in case you want to read it for yourself, but there's things that are like, are you serious? Does this need to be there? But otherwise, the book, I think, is really good, and it satisfied my needs for a Western romance. The next book that I read this month was a manga from the Black Butler series. I've watched the anime, and that's how I found it. And then some friends in high school, for holidays, we would give each other gifts, and they started buying me the mangas in order. And eventually, once we graduated, we lost touch, and so I decided to continue buying the series, which now I have most of them, as you can see here, and these are the ones that I've read, and this is the most recent one. So, to be honest, I don't remember what this book was about. I read it more so just to kind of escape and go back to the world of these characters, and I enjoy it while I read them. I know, like, the first 3 books were okay, and then, like, the next few after that, there was 2 characters that just annoyed me so much that I was like, if these characters are going to be here for much longer, I'm going to quit the series, because it was not enjoyable whatsoever, and it was such a task to continue reading the books that I was considering DNFing it. But I pushed through because I have issues with DNFing books. I'm glad that I did push through, because the characters are still there, but they are not the main plot line anymore. So they only come in like 1 or 2 scenes in each book. This book was, if you've ever read Agatha Christie, I believe it was And Then There Were None, this book is pretty much a retelling of this, but with characters from this story. And I loved it a lot. It was really fun seeing, because I really loved the story And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and now that, like, I get it in another world that I love, it was just even better. The only problem, though, is I have all of the books, but I don't read these ones. I read it on my Kobo, just because I don't want to damage the book, and it's easier to read it digitally than it is physically, just because, like, when you hold it like this, it's hard to see the entire page. So, like, with an e-reader, you get the full picture without the page, like, being rounded. See, like, this is the next book that I started reading, and, like, you get the full picture without shadows and whatnot. The next book that I read was State of Fear by Michael Crichton, I think. I love this holographic. I read this book because it was my local library's book of the month selection, and I had it on my shelf, and so I didn't have to borrow one from the library. I already had it. And this book, at first, I don't know how far into the book, it was like the first like 5 chapters or so, like the first 60 pages. The first 60 pages, they were setting up something that in the end confused me. Like, the events happened, but they never came back. They never were mentioned again. And I don't think played any important role in the story other than wasting the first 60 pages of the book. Um, if you've heard anything about this book, you'll know that uh, it talks about global warming and climate change. And I personally won't say anything about where I stand on it. At first, I thought this book was kind of like, yeah, whatever. But by the end of it, had this not been the library book of the month for my book club, I probably wouldn't have finished it based off the first 60 pages, because normally I gauge, this is exactly 60 pages, so I gauge the book if I think I'm gonna like it or not off those 60 pages, and I didn't like it at that point. I'm glad that I kept reading, and I think I would recommend this book to people. Just know that it's not a book that's popular for like booktube. It's just not as popular as other books like romance, just because it talks about real world things. The next book that I read is Six of Crows by Leah Bardugo, and I've had this book on my shelf for a while. This is one of the books that I did not thrift. I bought this brand new. I have the second book on the shelf behind me right here. And I only bought it just because so many people liked it, and I figured I would like it too, just by the way it sounds like on the back of the book. But I was kind of disappointed with this book. I listened to it on audiobook while I was cleaning, just because I didn't have time to sit down and actually read it. And I get why people like it, but it wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I'm going to continue the series just to finish it because I have the other one. And overall, this book, I wish I liked it more, but I don't think it's for me. The last book that I read this month, it's a book that has sat on my shelf for a while. Based off the title, I was kind of like, why did I buy this book? Like, it doesn't even sound good. This book is my new favorite book of all time. It made me cry, and I've never experienced that with a book before. Like, the author in this book, I can feel her real emotion in it, and I feel like that's what makes books different when they're so good like that. Is because the author puts themselves into this book, and that book would be Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. I originally thought, based off the title, that this book was going to be a dark romance, which I previously read one and did not like it at all. So that's the reason why I had hesitated to pick up this book so long, and I was completely wrong. This book is absolutely amazing. The part that made me cry, I won't say what, but I will tell you. The first part of the acknowledgement is to my father who deserved more time. And I read the acknowledgements when I read books, and most of the time I'm like, okay, but this book, when I finished it, I was so drawn into this world, and me personally, I wouldn't want to live there just because 90% of the people in this book did die due to a plague. But this book, it's very emotional, and there is romance a little bit. I believe it's YA, so there's no spice. It's very simple, which I like, and I feel so sad. It's gonna make me cry again just thinking about it. I feel bad for the main character. Her name is Nesta, and after I finished reading the book, I never read the acknowledgements, but for some reason I did this time, and I'm glad I did because it made I love this book so much, but the acknowledgements just was the candle on top. Like it truly made me understand like the emotions in this book that came through when I read it. And death is kind of a hard topic sometimes, and it's scary, especially when it's someone you love. Just know when you read this book, like it's death isn't the main topic, it's just the part that was like the biggest topic. This book does have necromancy, so yeah, Nesta is an alchemist. She goes to a school on a scholarship, and she wants to go to heal people, and there's a plague surrounding her country. I guess it would be a country. They're on a little island in an empire. They have the map in here, and so like this is the whole empire, and then this is where Nesta is on Lunar Island. So she learns how to use alchemy to help heal others, and eventually like the plague it just takes over, and they're trying to figure out where it's coming from, how to find a cure, and we just follow Nesta through that. I wish I could have reached the pages and helped her, but and like in perspective, like it feels so odd to have such a deep connection to words arranged on a page to make a story that makes you feel so emotionally connected to it. When I first started reading this book, the reason why I liked it so much was because it was about like alchemy, and some of my favorite words are citadel and incantations, and they use this word a lot in here, and that's just one of the reasons why I liked it to begin with. Just the way it's set, it's in my opinion the perfect book. There are flaws because of the story. I looked past them. I personally didn't like that there's like 3 scenes I think that this takes place. There's 2 times where it mentions or hints towards women liking women sexually, and I didn't like that. I just don't agree with it. And there was one towards the very end that I thought was even more gross. Without spoiling it too much, there was 2 fathers and an infant child that had died from the plague, and they were begging for their child's life back. And I'm not sorry, but I think that was just gross and unnecessary. If it didn't have those things, it would be the absolute perfect book, in my opinion. You can disagree with me on that, but I find those things uncomfortable. So for this book, I just looked past it because everything else I absolutely loved. So those are all the books that I read during the month of June. I wish I could have had time to read more, but during the summer months, I get kind of busy and don't have as much time to read. Hence why I had read so many of these as audiobooks. I don't mind if I have the physical book because most of them, they were either gifted to me or I bought them secondhand for really cheap. So I don't mind myself spending extra for the audiobooks, just because I have the Audible subscription where you can borrow the book, so it's cheaper. I feel satisfied with my consumption of books the way I do it. I don't feel guilty about it just because I feel like I'm not over consuming the books to where I have like 5 of the same book, each in a different edition. I feel like that is kind of unnecessary. Now, I won't lie, on the last book that I talked about, this book here, I did look to see if they had any other copies or like a prettier or like special edition one, but they don't. So this is the one that I'm going to display on my shelf. But I feel like it should be that way, like where if you absolutely love the book and you like, if it's a book that you would potentially lend out to others, like I would 100% give people this book, but because it's my favorite, I would want my own like special copy, so like the book doesn't get ruined and then I don't have it anymore. Which, if a book gets ruined, I'm not going to just throw it away unless it's absolutely destroyed. Because if the book is still readable, you shouldn't throw it away. I do want to talk about the books that I plan to read in July, which right now I don't have a full plan. I just have the first book picked out, which is City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. And this book sounds really good. It's in an alternate world, a fantasy world, and I think the words on these pages are really small, so I feel like it's going to take me a while to read it. But I'm excited to read it. And reading the back, some of the words in this story are going to be this kind of book where, like, every other word you're just making up your own word because you don't know how to pronounce it. But the back says, the city of Bulakov once wielded the powers of the gods to conquer the world, enslaving and brutalizing millions, until its divine protectors were killed. Now, Bulakov's history has been censored and erased, its citizens subjugated, but the surreal landscape of the city itself forever altered by the thousands of miracles its guardians once worked upon it, stands as a haunting reminder of its former supremacy. Into this broken city steps Sarah Devani. Officially, the unassuming young woman is just another junior diplomat sent by Bulakov's oppressors. Unofficially, she is one of her country's most accomplished spies, dispatched along with her terrifying secretary, Sigurd. I think that's how you say it. To solve a murder. But as Sarah pursues the killer, she starts to suspect that the beings who ruled this terrible place may not be as dead as they seem, and that Bulakov's cruel reign may not be over. A tale of vast conspiracies, dead gods, and buried histories, City of Stairs is once a gripping spy novel and a stunningly original work of fantasy. So this book is first of a trilogy. I have the other two books on my shelf, and I've just been looking at them for way too long. I need to start it and dive into this world in the city of Bulakov, if that's how you say it. I don't know. So these are all the books that I read in the month of June. If you have any questions or have any recommendations for me to read in the future, let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see more of what I read, please subscribe. And until next time, happy reading. Bye, friend!